ready to dance with the devil in the dark. Mr. Slow Jam's a sick type. The real life, I'm concerned. Play with life, you get burned. Lack imagination, ill thoughts, use discretion. Never holding out for my peeps, keeps protection. Only way shells on you. Breeze through, knock down obstacle, and clean phony asses off their pedestal. Believe.
Here come the drums.
All right. Yeah.
Here come the drums.
Welcome back to the Doug Stewart Show.
Bass in your face, not an 8-track, getting it good too.
Good morning to you, man. Happy Monday to you, Stewies. The number to the show is 404-382-0338. You can also email me at doug@thedugstewartshow.com. And as I said Friday before we got out of here, man, I didn't do a goddamn thing this weekend. I didn't do nothing, man. I did do something very on a sad note. I went to a funeral on Saturday. One of my chapter brothers' father passed away. Went to a funeral on Saturday, but that's pretty much it. Afterwards, I went to a little sports bar and poured out a little liquor for my man, Mr. Ernest Bivens, who passed away, and then watched some college basketball. That's when we were watching the South Carolina versus Gonzaga game Saturday afternoon. But that's pretty much it. Yesterday didn't do anything. Sat around and watched basketball and chilled out. Basically tried to recharge my battery or whatever, man. What'd you do this weekend, man? Didn't do nothing. Didn't do anything. Don't forget, hour number 3 of the show, man. If you're a wrestling fan, we're going to talk to Keith Holt, Ringtime Pro Wrestling. He has a show here on Spreaker.com, and we're hoping to try to get him on Stewart Media and Entertainment. So in hour number 3, Ringtime Pro Wrestling, we're going to talk to my man Keith Holt. So stay tuned for that, man. But the big news from this weekend, South Carolina Gamecocks get it done. Aja Wilson scored, is it Aja or Asia? I think it's Asia Wilson, scored 23 points to help Coach Staley, Dawn Staley, and South Carolina win their first national championship with a 67-55 victory over Mississippi State on Sunday night. Here's a quote from Dawn Staley. Here's a quote from Dawn Staley. It means that I can check one of the things that have been void in my career, said Staley, wearing the championship net around her neck in the post-game press conference. Something I wanted to do. I was one of 2 opportunities that I saw women play when I was younger, national championship games and the Olympics. Those were the things I had held dear and near to me growing up. Those were the things I saw and were shooting for. Staley made the Final Four 3 times as a player. I was right on that at Virginia, but never won. She also led the Gamecocks to the national semifinals 2 years ago before losing to Notre Dame. Staley became just the second African-American coach to win a national championship. She joined Carolyn Peck, who won a title at Purdue. Mississippi State had all the momentum on its side after a shocking win over UConn on Friday night and ended the Huskies' a record 111-game winning streak. Well, stop right there, man. I continue to talk about it, mentioned it in the first segment of the show. I mean, they had to be emotionally drained from that. Like, how can you get up? Like how can you get back up after that emotional win? Last second, it was an overtime, last-second shot by the little itty-bitty William girl at the very end. And just, you don't want to celebrate. You understand you have to play a game, the next day or a day after, within 2 days. But it's just tough psychologically, man, to get back up, I believe. A lot of times, if you're looking for a game to bet, if you're a wagerer and you're trying to find a game to bet on in Vegas, a game with that setup where an underdog comes in and beats like the better team, the quote unquote better team. In this particular case, Mississippi State came in and beat UConn, and they have to play another game. The next game usually is kind of like a letdown. They may win, but a lot of times the team they're playing will cover or they'll win. And so I think that's just what happened to Mississippi State, man. Just emotions were too high, trying to get back up emotionally for that matchup against South Carolina. But once again, I like it. Morgan Williams, who had become the face of the tournament with the game winner against the Huskies after a 41-point performance against Baylor, was held to just 8 points. Man, I can't even start to tell you how cool it was for the smallest person on the court. I think they said she's 5'2.5", just dominating, man, with her play this weekend in the tournament. Yeah. I mean, shots out and baller award to her for the big win against UConn and the last second shot and a great tournament in general. 41 points against Baylor in the previous game before that. So, I mean, that was cool. That was cool watching the smallest person on the court have big games and to make that shot. Very humble young lady, as you can tell if you listen to her in the post-game press conference. I thought that was real cool. Good shot, good stuff. Good stuff by Mississippi State as they fall a little bit short in their national championship. And you got to remember, and I didn't know this because I ain't paying attention to women's college basketball. What? I'm keeping it real. The thing you got to remember about that Mississippi State win over UConn is they lost to UConn last year in the tournament by 60 points. $60 points. A 60-point turnaround within a year. How the hell do you make it to the tournament and lose by 60? That type of thing happens all the time in women's basketball, man, as far as blowouts, where one team is just supremely better than the other, and you see blowouts, maybe not 60-point blowouts, not to that degree, but you see a lot of blowouts in women's college basketball, and to come back a year later and avenge a 60-point loss, man, that deserves a ball award. Ball award to them for that. Ball award once again to Asia Wilson, man. 23 points right there from Hopkins, South Carolina, which is Columbia. Right outside of Columbia. From what I understand, it was a big deal when she decided to stay in state and play for Dawn Staley at South Carolina. You know why. Because if you know anything about women's college basketball is the best players go to UConn. They go to UConn or they go to Tennessee. And they've been down. Tennessee's been down the last couple of years. Obviously a lot of changes going on at the University of Tennessee ever since Pat Summitt retired, and now ultimately she's passed on to glory. But the best women's high school basketball players, they go to UConn or Tennessee. That's it. And so it was a huge deal for Asia Wilson to stay in state and play for Dawn Staley, man. And Dawn Staley, that program, Gamecock faithful, were rewarded with a national championship. One of my friends posted on Facebook, man, Asia Wilson got better low post game than a lot of these dudes out here. A lot of these dudes. Oh. So let me ask y'all this, man. Is it politically incorrect to say a woman played like a beast? Huh? Is it wrong? Is it politically incorrect to call a woman's game? I'm not saying she's a beast. I'm saying her game is a beast. She was beasting down there this weekend. Damn. I mean, she needs to give Dwight Howard a couple of lessons, man. Damn. Yeah. Dwight Howard can learn a thing or two from Asia Wilson. So, ball award to the Gamecocks finally. Once again, we don't have the complete sweep. I talked about this last week, man. I realized it early last week after South Carolina had beat Florida. But we had an incredible opportunity to beat national championships or to have national championships in all three sports, college sports. Baseball with Coastal Carolina, football with Clemson. I say we because I'm from the state of South Carolina if you're new to the show. So baseball, Coastal Carolina is your reigning national champion. Football, Clemson is your reigning national champion. Basketball fell a little bit short, obviously, this weekend and losing to Gonzaga. But the women, the state of South Carolina now has national championships in three major sports, 3 of the 4 if you count the women and the men as 2 different sports. The Lady Gamecocks, the Clemson Tigers, and the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Yes, sir. Yeah. Hey, 404-382-0338. You can also email me at Doug@theDougStewartShow.com so you know what it comes down to tonight. The Blue Bloods, as they call them. I don't really like that term. That sounds kind of elitist or whatever. But I guess I kind of get what they're saying. But the Blue Bloods, the Gonzaga Bulldogs taking on North Carolina. The contrast in the NCAA Tournament Championship game is clear. North Carolina, winners of 5 titles and appearing in its record 20th Final Four, is on one side. And then you have Gonzaga kind of like on the other side in its first Final Four, spending almost 2 decades trying to get to this point. They're 2 experienced, balanced number 1 seeds ready to throw down tonight at 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time from the University of Phoenix Stadium. North Carolina's Roy Williams will be coaching in his 100th NCAA tournament game and going for his 3rd national title. He has rings from 2005 and 2009, coming up just short last year with the last-second shot against Villanova. North Carolina, 32-7 this year, won the ACC regular season title by 2 games and knocked off number 4 seed Butler and number 2 seeded Kentucky and number 3 seeded Oregon on Saturday night to advance to the title game. The Tar Heels are bona fide and unquestioned. Plenty, though, have doubted Gonzaga. The Bulldogs, 37-1, have had their doubts because they play in the weaker West Coast Conference, and their last 2 games in the tournament were against upstarts 11th-seeded Xavier and 7th-seeded South Carolina. So Xavier, an 11th seed, and South Carolina, a 7th seed, technically what that says is that those are teams that Gonzaga should be able to beat based on the seeding and the power index and what they've done all year long. I don't think that's quite an accurate way to describe it because South Carolina and Xavier play great basketball, but you understand what I'm saying. The Bulldogs, man, once again from that West Coast Conference, man, make it to the Final Four for the first time, and they make it to the championship game for the first time ever. I mentioned these cats earlier. The Karnowski kid is a load at 7'1" and 300 pounds, while freshman 7-footer Zach Collins, who's probably going to be an NBA first-round pick, man, is a beast down there as well. The Ivory Towers. Collins had 14 points against the Gamecocks, setting a career high with 13 boards and 6 blocked shots. They'll be matched up in part against North Carolina's sturdy man in the middle and senior Kennedy Meeks. Also, the Hicks kid is down there as well in the paint, the power forward. He's not often called upon to be a leading scorer, but when the Tar Heels went up against Oregon, Meeks dominated with 25 points on 11 of 13 shooting. He had 14 boards, 8 on the offensive glass as well. So that's going to be a battle of the Titans down there. Meeks and Hicks against Karnowski and Collins. Old school style. I like it. I like it. North Carolina leads the country in rebounding margin and offensive rebounds. Forward Justin Jackson averages a team best 18.3 points per game. Point guard Joel Berry II, averaging 14.5 points per game, has been dealing with some bad ankles. He's played 35 minutes Saturday night, but was just 2 of 14 from the field. So what's going to go down? How's it going to go down tonight? 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Gonzaga The number 1 seeded Gonzaga, the Zags, taking on North Carolina, the Tar Heels. Yeah!